Welcome, my name is Isabella Brusati and I am the owner of Isabella Brusati Consulting. My company specializes in cross-border mergers and acquisition, integration and restructuring. Over the past few weeks I've been taking you through a journey that had the aim to assess the main approaches that analyze the people's element of change management. As I already explained in my previous videos, it is unfortunate that most executives tend to disregard the human element when dealing with change management. So, for example, whether they are dealing with cultural change, mergers and acquisition, restructuring and integration. And that's really a shame because the human element is considered as the main reason for failure of these deals. So these videos have actually the aim to allow you viewers to assess the approaches that you can use and you can implement in real situations in trying to diminish or actually to avoid the failure percentage in change management within your organization. In my first video I've spoken about the behavioral approach. In my second video I spoke about the cognitive approach. In my third video I spoke about the psychodynamic approach, and now I will actually talk about the humanistic psychology approach. The difference between this approach and the other three is that it takes into consideration the desire that an individual has to grow and to self-actualize and self-fulfill himself or herself. And also is actually the fact that the person takes ownership for his or her situation. Let's look at the most important theories as they will help make you understanding what this model is about, so what this approach is about. The first approach, and that you would probably have heard of, is actually the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Actually, Maslow developed this model, which was really groundbreaking because he's actually realized that people, the ultimate aim of an individual is actually to reach the self-actualization. However, before he reaches the top of this pyramid, the individual has to fulfill all the other steps. There are actually 4 different steps, and only when each step is fulfilled, the person can actually reach the top of the pyramid and therefore go for self-actualization. But what are these steps? Well, first of all, we got the physiological needs. So, for example, the requirements to have food, drink, shelter and warmth. So, for example, having a house with heating and having the possibility of getting food and drink. Only when the physiological need is satisfied, the individual will look at satisfying the safety needs, which are the needs for security, order and law. If we look in terms of change management, actually, the safety needs can be considered as the requirements of having a safe job. And that's actually when, we introduce change, that's actually when the safety needs all of a sudden basically goes away. Going back to Maslow, when the safety needs actually is fulfilled, that's when it goes to the next step, which is the needs of love and belonging. So the needs of having a family, affection, and also a work group. So basically, in terms of working relationship, the fact of being part of a team, being a sense of belonging to an organization. When the love and belonging needs are fulfilled, it goes to the next level, which is actually self-esteem. So is the need of having a certain status, having achieved a certain level, and also having responsibilities of a certain kind. Only only when the self-esteem is fulfilled, the person goes to the next stage, which is the self-actualization, which is basically the requirement of personal growth and fulfillment. It's actually when someone reaches this level that they attempt to become the person that they think they would like to be. This is fundamental in understanding the reason why people reach this stage only when all the other basic needs are fulfilled. It's very unlikely that someone will go, for example, into a requirement of self-actualization if they don't feel that the need for safety or the physiological need have been fulfilled. This is fundamental to understand the humanistic psychology approach. But we will look also at other approaches that will give change managers the possibility to manage change in a proactive way and understanding the reason why people behave in a certain way. The second theory that we will be assessing when applying this approach to change management is actually the Gestalt cycle. The Gestalt cycle basically states that individuals are experiencing beings. So basically we have senses and we experience our surroundings. So for example, I am hungry, I am thirsty, I am happy, I am sad. This is basically the sensation that someone has. And I become aware of the sensation and I then mobilize energy. What does that mean? It means that basically I focus my awareness to a specific facet. I then take action in order to satisfy this specific situation and I make contact with the world. I subsequently close this specific situation and I move on to the next. What does that mean? It means that basically, let's go through an example. Let's pretend that you have to give feedback to an employee and therefore you start following this cycle. So you know that you are aware that you have to give this specific feedback. You start sensing it. You maybe feel a little bit nervous, especially if the feedback is not particularly positive. You then mobilize your energy. Now basically you start thinking about how to go to give feedback to this individual. You then take action. You meet with the individual and you give the feedback. And basically you have contact with this specific individual. There is then the resolution of closure. That basically it's when, after having given feedback to the person, the energy that is linked to the specific event tends to decrease significantly. Niven has actually applied the concept of the Gestalt cycle to change management. First of all, for change to be successful, all this cycle has to be completed. So the first awareness is basically in change management where people start to gather information, start to get information about, for example, previous change management processes that have been taken place in the specific company and review past performance. The second, which is basically the mobilization of energy and action, is basically when people start sharing ideas and try to get support to their ideas. It doesn't mean that they have to get an agreement, but basically they start to get things going, they start to get momentum. That is then the part relating to the contact, when actually people have to choose a course of action. So there are different possibilities, where are we going? And then there is the resolution of closure. That is when basically there is an assessment of what has occurred, what went right, what went wrong, and basically there is a beginning to develop an implementation and an action plan. So only when this cycle is completed, change actually has occurred. If, for example, a phases is missing, basically the change from the point of view of the Gestalt cycle is not going to be successful. So for example, if we don't get to the moment of the implementation, clearly change cannot take place. If at the beginning there is no awareness of what are the issues of the data that has to be gathered, of course change cannot be successful. If there is no sharing of information, if there is no attempt to look for the support, change cannot be successful. So basically the difference of the humanistic approach compared to the others is basically the fact that it takes into consideration how an individual experiences the external world, and the steps that basically have to be completed in order to get to a successful resolution of an issue relating to change management. The main point of the humanistic approach focuses on the fact that business is not only rational. I mean, people tend to think that business is only necessarily rational, and things can be measured, but with regards to individual, there is an element that has to come into play, which is emotional intelligence. And that's why most of the time managers feel very, very uncomfortable with regards to managing change from the point of view of the human being. That's because emotional intelligence requires empathy, requires to be compassionate, and is not easily measurable. However, the humanistic approach basically shows that in order to be an effective change agent, managers have to be emotionally fully present, because if there is not this element, they cannot learn and they cannot facilitate the learning of the people that are going through change. So there is a completely new factor that is not only the rational business model, but is emotional intelligence that comes into play. In addition to the emotional intelligence, I will actually cover in the next video the importance of personality and the Myers-Briggs, because it's, as I said, that I briefly passed through before, it's very, very important to consider also the personality of an individual and how a single person reacts to change. Not everyone goes at the same pace, because the personality and the traits of an individual are fundamentally different from the others. And that's actually why change management is such a difficult process, because in addition to all the environmental issues or the cost issues, of the process issues, of the procedure issues, there is the element of the human beings that are all different one from the other. So it's a genuinely complex process, but being aware of the complexity actually makes it easier for a manager to resolve the issues in a proactive way, rather than sweeping them up in the carpet and pretending that the problem doesn't exist. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk you through the next stages in the next video.